Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today let's go over the market. The week has just officially finished. What an absolutely wild week, and I think next week as usual will be also quite a wild and entertaining. But all that being said and done, let's get into it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. Let's jump into it. Tesla ending the day once again down 1.62%, though not too bad considering it was down over 3% at the lows of the day. I think almost even 4%. Either way, putting us at $180.21 compared to the market. As usual, underperformance by a decent margin because this QQQ, the NASDAQ, was pretty much flat, right? Pretty much didn't move at all today. Well, Tesla, unfortunately, not so good. Let's just say that, right? But all that being said and done, what does this all mean? So, like I said, I still believe Tesla will get a rally very soon, right? Obviously, when I said it yesterday, it doesn't mean it has to be today. Very soon doesn't mean tomorrow, right? In this case, today. However, I do think it's potentially going to be starting early next week. And then there's a few things that I can see happening. Now, I will give you guys the levels to keep in mind that, if something happens, then, we might not get the rally, right? Based on what actually ends up transpiring, I guess, or whatever, right? So, regardless, let's go over it. So the first thing that I personally notice is several things, right? First and foremost, what I do notice is the fact that number one, we did essentially set a double bottom, right? Boom, boom, boom. Now this right here is pretty textbook, a double bottom right here pattern, right? This is a very textbook double bottom pattern. So that's number one, right? But you could have made the same argument over here. We went here. Could have did a triple bottom and then bounced. Unfortunately, that failed. So essentially, what you want to see is happen here, what failed here, up like all the way up here. That's kind of what you want to see. You want to see this one actually play it out properly as opposed to this. Personally, I think it will. Now, obviously, it might not. And the way you decide that if it doesn't is essentially if we get, so let's zoom in here, right? So this is pretty much, we're kind of almost repeating-ish this situation here. If we get this candle right here, this is the candle we want to make sure we don't get. If we get this kind of candle right here, for instance, that's where this whole thing falls apart. It becomes bearish once again, and things are not looking good. However, as long as we don't get that kind of candle, and essentially as long as we defend this kind of 180 to this sort of 177 range, as long as this range is defended exactly the way it was today, and ideally, close the candles above 180, especially a weekly candle, which is important, which we just barely managed to do. It's a good sign. It's a good sign. It's so far, I'm not losing hope yet. I only will start losing hope if we start closing candles under 180 consistently, especially a weekly. That is when I will personally start getting very, very worried. But until that happens, I am still very hopeful. However, again, on the weekly, don't forget the RSI is, of course, still looking fairly bearish. However, as we move on to the daily, you can see, right, as the stock came all the way down over here, right up here, when we're at 204, we set the RSI lowest point essentially, or like pretty much the lowest point at just under 25. Then we came all the way down here to this low point, right, which was about 177, and we pretty much did very, 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 very slight lower low on the RSI, essentially a double bottom though, let's be completely honest. And then if you take a look at it one more time, as Tesla pretty much came down to almost exact same level, you can see the RSI is very noticeably higher, right? It's a little bit more easier to see over here, as you can see, right, on the 4-hour chart. Same concept, as we came pretty much to the same level, if not technically lower at some point as well. The RSI very noticeably higher, again, also forming that bullish divergence. Now, I know we've been talking about this bullish divergence quite a lot, but like I said, the longer time frames take longer to play out, and it did fail kind of over here, sort of. I mean, you can make the argument it failed, but you can also make the argument that it didn't, because it also kind of set a double bottom, even though the stock went substantially lower than this level over here, like compared to these two levels right here. Even though the stock went substantially lower, it pretty much came down to more or less the exact same level, just a very, very slight like sliver lower, which is fine in my opinion. But essentially, it set a double bottom on the RSI again, even though the stock went much lower, and then we pretty much went to the same level again, and now it's setting substantially more noticeable lower lows, or higher lows, excuse me, which is good. That is a good sign. That is a good start, right? Moving over to the major indicators, there's not really a point to look at them too much, except for this one. Maybe we're still in between the white and the red, but the rest of them were definitely well below them. Like, really not much to see in my what is this? Oh no, I messed up. There we go. Right, not much to see in my opinion, right? We're just pretty much below the major indicators still. So overall, the trend is still bearish, and there's still no true confirmation of a reversal here yet. However, this is one of those things where if it were to happen, if we were to get a bounce, if we were to get at least some form of a reversal, this would be the perfect opportunity, because we came down, defended the same level we did over here, set a double bottom, setting up some bullish divergences. We are still essentially, you can see in the weekly, pretty much, arguably going to be bouncing off this red line, right? We're pretty much exactly at it, more or less, like exceptionally close, right? We're literally off by like 1 or 2 points, right? Exceptionally close in this ultimate downward channel that we are still in. That, if you're a bull, you can actually argue this is just a massive bull flag playing out potentially, because it's like such a long, bull flag. It essentially ends up looking extremely bearish, which I guess in theory it is. But, you can definitely make the argument that this is just essentially a massive bull flag, just essentially potentially playing out, and that, maybe we get a nice little rally up here, and then potentially we can still make a lower low, come down to touch this lower time frame or lower channel of this flag or channel or whatever you want to call it, maybe all the way over here sometime, maybe like early-ish next year. I guess if in theory it's technically possible, and then finally get our actual true bounce from there once the potential correction more or less is finished and this bear market hopefully finally decides to be done, right? That is a possibility over the slightly longer time frame, where essentially we will go from here, maybe bounce up to somewhere, whatever, maybe crash back down, and then we ultimately start heading our way back up, right? That's just one theory or one example that can actually ultimately play out. Just something to consider, of course. No one knows for sure, which is why, of course, timing the market is extremely difficult, right? But, that's just one theory. Now, another thing, you can see that there is definitely some nice buying pressure that came in under these important critical level. We did close above 180, which again, like I said, from, these levels over here, you want 180. And I talked about this a few days ago. You want 180 to hold, in my honest opinion. It's extremely important, 180 on the weekly holds. Like, it's exceptionally important that we don't really break that. So as long as we hold it so far, again, like I said, I'm feeling pretty good. Now, again, for bears, if you want to have this collapse down to 166, maybe even lower to 150 or something like that, pretty much what you want to be seeing is 180 fall apart. You want to see 180 just essentially snap. You don't want a 180 to hold, and if it and once it snaps, you don't want it to be able to go back up over 180 for at least a couple of days or so. That will be the ideal scenario. Essentially, this kind of candle right here, which then is just followed by more bearish sentiment and whatnot. But this, again, keep in mind, it was when Elon was selling. So unless Elon starts selling more, I don't think we'll get this just yet, right? Well, we'll see. We'll see. Not financial advice. Make your own decisions, of course, as per usual. But that is just kind of what I'm seeing and what I am currently thinking, right? But that's pretty much more or less it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. I mean, again, the way I see it is, if there is an extremely important time and area to bounce, this is it. We need to get a reaction here. We need to bounce over here. I think the bounce can be glorious if we do get it. If we don't, however, which again, very possible we don't, but if we don't, then that could be pretty bad. Another thing to consider is something along the lines of this, where you can see we did finally break out of this downward channel, which is also somewhat promising, right? We did start the day above it. We completely collapsed right under it, and then we kind of maintained this level, got back, bought back up, and also crossed this line that we had several times that we could not do it and keep above it, right? And in this case, we finally were able to do it, which is also not too bad of a sign. So we'll see how that turns out, guys. Wouldn't be surprised if Monday starts a little bit red, maybe come down, retest this line at 178 one final time, and then potentially go for the rally up from there. So that is something that I wouldn't be surprised to see. But that is currently what I am ultimately seeing. You can see another kind of bullish divergence setting up over here as well on the 1 hour chart, which is looking pretty good. But I'm feeling good, guys. I know it's scary. I know people are probably like panic selling. People are probably like, just they can't take it anymore or whatever. I bought, actually, I bought today on my smaller account that I told you guys. Remember, I sold at like 197 or something like that. I bought the other day 50 shares. I bought another 50 shares today, and I will keep buying if we somehow end up going lower than this. If not, then I'll ride those 100 shares on that smaller account that I have. And then, of course, I still have my main account, which I have a lot more shares on, but I'm just kind of, slowly riding out and whatnot. And, still have cash ready for 150s if we ever hit that. If not, fantastic. I'll ride this out. I'm happy with that as well. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing. That's kind of what I'm expecting. Those are my thoughts. I'm feeling good. I know the sentiment around Elon, around Tesla right now is, very, very bad. I personally see that as an opportunity. The worse the sentiment is that I see from people in public eyes and everything, the more negative it is, the more just sour it is, the more opportunity I personally see. I don't want to buy when everyone's buying. I don't want to buy when everyone's, greedy. I want to buy when people are thinking of exiting. I want to buy when people are, scared. When they're not greedy, when they're fearful. That's personally when I want to start buying. And there's just a lot of very negative sentiment towards Tesla and or Elon. I personally leave emotions aside. This is not the place for emotions. If you're using emotions to decide how you want to, hold shares, buy shares, whatever, sell shares in the market, especially for trading, man, you're in for just an absolutely horrible time. I'll just say that, right? That's just my opinion, of course. But I'm personally leaving emotions aside. I see very bad sentiments. I see very, people upset nonstop with Elon. Hey, the stock is falling. I see that as opportunity, right? Again, just my opinion. Could be completely wrong. Tesla could just go to zero. Who knows? But that's kind of what I'm thinking, and that's kind of what I'm doing, and that's kind of what I'm seeing. So just my opinion, just a random guy on the internet. Take it as you will. Not financial advice. Make your own decisions. Do your own research. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Peace.